All right, yep, I think we can start. All right, good morning, everyone. We're privileged to have Mr. Parry here to speak with us. He's highly regarded for his expertise in education leadership, and his vast experience includes high-level positions with secondary and vocational institutions throughout Australia, the Middle East, the US, India, and China. A strong leader and a dedicated educator, Mr. Parry's various positions at these institutes of learning include director, headmaster, and consultant. And we'll pass it over to you, Mr. Parry, for your speech on practical insights on the future of education. Oh, if parents have any questions, please feel free to type in the chat box and Mr. Parry will answer them at the end. Okay, over to you.
Okay, great. Thanks very much for that introduction, and welcome everyone to this webinar this morning. It's a great chance for me to be able to talk about things that I'm very passionate about. Of course, I'm going to talk about Kingsgate, but independently of that, I want to talk about education and where I see it going in the future, because I think that if you're looking at choosing a school right now, it's important to understand the philosophies that underpin that school, the values and beliefs of that school. So hopefully, through hearing my discussion this morning as one of the co-founders, you'll understand a little bit about the philosophy and the background that sits behind Kingsgate. So yeah, I want to talk about some practical insights on the future of education. What does it take to raise and educate amazing kids? How best do we prepare children for a world that's changing so rapidly? And you know, the catchphrase we often say is that we're preparing children for a world that hasn't even been invented yet. And I think it's really important for us to understand that frame of reference when we're talking about education and what school we're going to send our children to. The research about education and schools is quite overwhelming, and it can get quite daunting for parents and educators to understand the difference between schools. So hopefully the information I share today will help you understand some ways, some characteristics, some checkpoints you can use to consider what's the best school for your child. This morning, I'd like to focus on a fictitious 12-year-old child named Chloe. So Chloe right now is 12 years of age. Chloe from Kingsgate. So in 20 years' time, by 2040, she will be 32 years of age. So I want you to think about Chloe at 12 now, preparing her for 2040 when she turns 32 years of age. And I want to talk about some of the key elements of what's going to be needed to help prepare her for that life in 20 years from now. Well, the truth is Chloe lives in an era of exponential change. The rate of and pace of change is getting faster and faster. Things are dramatically happening, changing quickly. And it's really hard for us to predict what life's going to be like for her when she finishes school and when she goes to university, because she's only 12. Let's think about our own life, 20 years gone by. When I think about what life was like for me when I was 12 years of age, certainly, although maybe some families did, we didn't have a cell phone. At 12 years of age for me, I didn't personally have a computer. And certainly a lot of the things that exist today were just dreams or ideas that maybe some people had. I didn't understand the power of the internet and what could change. Certainly the concept of a smartphone was something very foreign to me. I mean, the thought that, you know, this morning I spoke to my parents in Australia, and on this iPhone, I spoke to them on a video chat, and I held the iPhone up and I spoke to them in live time. And who would have thought that I could live such a long distance away from my family in Australia, but for me to hear my mother's emotions, hear my father's voice, understand and see his facial expressions, and us really connect far more deeply using technology. I mean, who would have thought that we would now have automated cars and vehicles that basically could potentially move us around the world or around our cities without even having a human being in charge of it? The world is changing rapidly, and I guess we need to understand that. This recent pandemic period has certainly been a shock for all of us. It's been a crisis that's been on literally a global proportion. And we know that overnight, 3 months ago, it was almost like someone clicked a switch and the world changed dramatically. And many people are saying that the pandemic will transform education forever and transform the world forever. And I guess I can understand that viewpoint, but I don't see it quite the same way. I'm not sure that the pandemic as such changed the world overnight. I think what happened is that we just accelerated the plan. We were already on a fast trajectory forward of change. We were already going to change the world. The world was already adapting. But what happened with the pandemic is that we were tested really quickly. We were tested. Someone said, hey, can you quickly adapt overnight to an incredibly different world? And certainly all the schools in Malaysia were tested very, very fast. Overnight, we were pushed to provide education in a different way, and we were either ready for it or we weren't. And some schools succeeded incredibly well, and some schools failed. I know Kingsgate, to be honest, did a fantastic job. And although I'm biased, I believe that the feedback from us from Kingsgate was incredible. That overnight, parents were very, very satisfied with the quality of education we were providing. Why did that happen? I think the schools that succeeded in Malaysia were the schools that had very strong management that could adapt. So they were able to meet the challenge head on. They weren't scared of the situation. They were well prepared. They were proactive, and they had great relationships with their staff. I think the other difference for Malaysian schools that succeeded were those that had great teachers. Suddenly, overnight, the facilities didn't matter. It didn't matter what your facilities looked like. It was that relationship between the teachers and the children that really mattered. So if the relationships between the teachers and the children and the parents were strong before the MCO period, then that was really strong and helped make sure that the school succeeded in coming weeks and, of course, months afterwards. So the quality of teachers and there was very important. And as the relationships, the connectedness that existed between families and schools were important. I saw it, and I'm sure you did. Many complaints online from parents about schools that were or were not succeeding in supporting the children. But certainly I heard a lot of very positive things across many schools in Malaysia. And it was the same thing. It was things like, our school cares about us. Our teachers care. Our teachers are going extra steps. I mean, some of our teachers were working 10 to 12-hour days to prepare and make sure that children were still getting the very best quality of education that they could. And I think that's what was, those three areas were the key difference for schools that succeeded and schools that didn't. So back to Chloe. I mean, Chloe at the age of 12 needs to be ready. There's this term often used today called future shock. We can't have future shock. I mean, Chloe at the age of 32, if a new technology comes in that changes her workplace or changes her industry overnight, she needs to not have future shock. I mean, we've all seen it before, haven't we? Maybe we've experienced it ourselves where, a person said, well, I don't want one of these silly smartphones. I just want a phone that makes phone calls. Or I don't want this technology. That's not for me. And I respect that choice. But the truth is, Chloe needs to not have future shock. She needs to be able to adapt to any of those rapid changes as they come forward. She needs to be open to it. She needs to be critical of it and push back as necessary, but she needs to be ready to take it on board. Not to be a victim of the technology, not to be a victim of the changes, but to be someone that can truly embrace it and use it to make a difference and help her succeed. Chloe needs to be a realistic optimist, I would describe it. And myself as an education leader and someone that sets up and operates schools, I believe I'm innovative. I believe I'm optimistic, but I'm also realistic as well. So I judge new ideas carefully. What I found interesting during this MCO period is all of our schools were inundated with technology companies trying to sell us new technology. Oh, please use this. This is fantastic. It's animation. It's got flashing lights and it does these incredible things. Well, that was exciting, but we needed to be critical of it as well. Did that technology accelerate outcomes for kids? Did it improve student achievement? Or was it just some kind of silly idea that engaged children for 5 minutes, but didn't really teach them anything? I think that was another interesting test of schools and test of education technology. And again, some schools and some technology companies succeeded, but some failed. Chloe needs to be an optimist, but she needs to be realistic as well. She needs to be able to believe that 90% of the world is great and good and be really positive about the future. But she also needs to be cautious and filter some of the new things that come forward and make independent decisions about what's right for her industry and for her future as well. In my opinion, I'm not a doomsday person. I think that right now, in terms of the history of the world and human history and time, it's one of the most exciting times in the world to be alive. I mean, the things that are happening right now outside the pandemic are incredible. And as I said, what happened is the pandemic accelerated some of those things. I mean, who would have thought that factories overnight that were previously building motor cars would have retooled and be making ventilators? I mean, that's exciting to me that some of us human beings and industries and companies were tested. Could you pivot? Could you adapt? And could you succeed? I think that's what Chloe needs to understand, that she needs to be really good at dealing with the wonderful mess that is the real world. My grandmother died a few years ago at the age of 97, and I remember talking to her about changes. And she talked about a wonderful mess. The fact that there's been times when in her history and lifetime that the world hasn't been particularly smooth or simple. But you know what? She made it through. And she either caved into it or she took these crises as opportunities to make a difference. I mean, the future's not what happens to us. It's what we create from it. And that's what we really need to have, is Chloe needs to have that mindset that she's going to be a creator of change, not a victim of it. We need to be innovative thinkers, and we need to have a solid base that we then use to then make changes from. So some of these ideas I'm sharing, I mean, what should you look for in a school? You need to look for a school that embraces a lot of these ideas, embraces this way of thinking. You need to have a school that believes in lifelong learning, that will teach Chloe to learn beyond the classroom, outside when the teacher's not there, beyond the age of 17 and 18 when she graduates. She needs to be a person that can keep on learning and keep on adapting well into the future. I think that's really, really important. So how do schools prepare students for that? I guess we teach them to be critical thinkers. We teach them to be able to apply knowledge and adapt, and to be inquisitive and excited about learning, and enthusiastic and motivated to know more, to learn more, to investigate more. Now, you may notice that so far in this discussion, I haven't mentioned anything about traditional curriculum. English, mathematics, physics, chemistry, science, etc. Well, don't get me wrong, those things are all incredibly important. But your job at the moment is to choose what's the best school for you. Let me let you in on a very obvious secret. All British international schools have basically the same traditional curriculum. They all teach basically the same subjects. They all have a sign out the front that says UK curriculum, IGCSE, A-levels, checkpoint. They're all the same in that regard. And generally speaking, they all have the same textbooks. So that's not what you're judging. You're judging other things. So I'm not going to focus on those things. Your child needs to get great academic results. They need to achieve good grades in those subject areas. But there's more than that. How they are going to apply it, how they're going to allow these things to enrich their lives. This is those subjects and the information and knowledge they learn are tools. But what are they going to do with those tools? How are they going to succeed in life? I think that's something that's really important for you to understand. Because I have a few perspectives on the future, and I think schools that meet the needs of your child need to be able to understand and embrace these things. We can't predict the future. It's complex. We don't know exactly what the future will be like. We couldn't have predicted the pandemic. We can't predict the stock market. We can't 100% predict what the industries are going to look like. There will be new inventions. There will be changes. We can't predict those things. But we can expect that complex things are going to happen, that our children, as they develop and grow and move into different careers, are going to be influenced by things we don't expect. So we need to be ready. They need to be ready, and they need to be able to adapt. Now, sometimes we can make predictions about what's coming up soon. We may not be able to predict what Chloe's life's going to be like at the age of 32 in 2040, but we can look at recent events and what's coming up, and based on data and trends, we can know what she's going to need coming up soon, what's up ahead. And let me tell you, some of these things are quite obvious. The pandemic proved to us that the world's very interconnected. The economies of the US, Russia, China, Malaysia, Australia, they're not independent. They are definitely connected. And what happens in one place affects the other. Health as well. We know how quickly this pandemic spread. So Chloe needs to understand the connectedness that exists between other cultures and countries and economies, and she needs to be internationally minded. She needs to be a critical thinker. She needs to have great interpersonal skills. It's very important for her to have great relationships with other people within her predict to be the shortages in careers in the next 5 to 10 years? Because we sort of can predict that. We sort of know that there are certain careers that are going to have some shortfalls coming up soon because maybe our education system hasn't prepared children well enough. So we know that there are some vocational trade areas that there's a shortage right now. We know that there's a need for programmers. And again, I won't get into that in detail, but we know that coming up soon, there are some shortages in particular career areas that might influence Chloe's decisions. And it's important to think about that and make sure that you attend a school that can help prepare you for it. We can't predict the future, but we can create it. We can create experiences ahead, and we can counter some of the challenges and solve problems in advance. We can pivot. Of course, that's the new word we use these days. We can pivot and turn a crisis into an opportunity. And I think, again, recently the pandemic has proved to us that if you have those skills to adapt, you can succeed. You have the ability to adapt and find new skills, then you can do very, very well. So there is that pull of the future, the values and beliefs that will pull us forward, the ideas, the mindset, the attitude, the international mindedness, the character, the beliefs. Those things are really important for the future. There's also the push of the present. The push of the present is the trends, the influence more recently that's going to say, okay, there's going to be these kind of careers that are going to be important for Chloe when she's 12 now, when she's 17. We can sort of predict what kinds of careers are going to be important as she finishes school. But there's also the weight of the past, and it's learning from things that went wrong in the past. We can learn from this pandemic. We can learn from the fact that if people weren't adaptable, they didn't easily change it and move in different directions. We can know from the past what is important for us to learn and understand. Schools need also to teach Chloe about how to evaluate information. Is it real? Is it true? Social media is bombarding our children with lots of information, and us too. And if you know anything about social media platforms, the way they work is that they channel and funnel information that we're interested in directly to us. So if I'm interested in a particular topic and I click on lots of articles on the internet's going to keep sending those kind of articles to me because I'm interested and it knows it wants to satisfy my need. That's really important. But on the other hand, it's dangerous because it narrows our view. Chloe needs to be well read from a wide range of different sources. If she only gets her information from Facebook, Instagram, or of course TikTok, she's not going to be well prepared for the future. So we need to be sure that she has good skills in critically evaluating the information that comes to her. She needs to know how to make an idea better. She needs to know that these new innovations that are happening and things that are happening in the area of her industry are good and great, but she needs to know there's got to be a way to make that even better. So there needs to be an acceptance that that's not good enough yet. And I don't mean a pessimistic one. I mean one where she gets excited about new technologies, new directions, but also knows that we've got to have that door and window open because there's got to be a way to make it even better. And Chloe's got to get smarter. Chloe's got to get better with her relationships. She's got to get to know more people. She's got to have bigger networks. She's got to become more and more successful in these key competencies and areas that are really important for her to succeed in the future. I think Chloe also needs to have risk and protective behaviors. She needs to have ways to protect herself from some of these challenging things that are going to face her. Now, of course, the first place she's going to get that is from home. Her immediate family protects and supports her naturally, and that's where it comes from first. But a school is an extension of that as well. And I recommend that parents particularly look closely at a school beyond the academics, but also how well is the school protecting Chloe from these challenges? How supportive is this environment? What's the love and care look like? I mean, I get frustrated when I read about schools that say they're loving and caring and supportive, but they're not in true practice. I mean, I hear terrible things about parents that are faced with challenges where schools are not looking after their children in loving and caring ways. So you need to find that out. And it's not in the textbooks and it's not in the prospectus, or you can't prove for sure that. You need to ask other parents. So if you want to find out about a school, ask other parents that already go there and ask these other questions, because the answers around academics and curriculum are probably going to be all about the same. You need to make sure that you understand those other things as well. And this is reflected in different kinds of behaviors. I was talking to a colleague just yesterday about how do we know that? Well, I mean, when you walk down the corridors of schools and you interact with children, you can get a sense of the mother and the father and the children and etc., I can get a sense of their character and values in terms of how they interact with me. So when you walk past children in a school and say, "Hello, sir, how are you today?" That's different to a child ignoring you and letting you go past. The smiling faces, the fact that they're happy to be there, the fact that after the MCO, do they want to get back to school or are they really happy to not be there anymore? These are the things that reflect school culture and climate. And they're not just in the fancy websites and the brochures. You really need to get connected to the school to find out these things for truth. We need to make sure that a school definitely reflects the behaviors it espouses to have. It might say it's a wonderful, loving, caring school, but how do you know? You need to connect deeply and make sure you can figure these things out. Have interactions with the teachers, have interactions with the school management, and then do these values shine through? We talk about augmented intelligence and artificial intelligence, and I think these things will continue to happen, but we need to understand what place they have in someone like Chloe's life. The truth is they will replace jobs as we know it. I believe what a lot of these things will do is they sort of take away the heavy lifting. Chloe, when she's 32 years of age, will not be doing the heavy lifting that maybe other generations had before. She won't be doing tedious things. I mean, she won't be going through filing cabinets filled with lots of dusty paper trying to figure information out. She'll have a lot of information that's more accessible to her. We know that factories are much more automated. So that heavy lifting, that tedious hard work, there'll be less of it. So she needs to have the skills to operate that technology or use that technology or invent that new technology or meet the needs of the skills that sit around that. But that's certainly what the world will be like for her in her 20s and 30s going forward. Chloe needs to be excited about it and embrace it, not be pessimistic about it. And she needs to be ready to adjust and succeed in that space. So how do we add these things to curriculum? Well, Kingsgate, I think, does this really well. The truth is, good schools like Kingsgate don't have a curriculum around interpersonal relationships as such, but the values are inculcated in everything that they do. The behaviours and values of school management reflect that. The interrelationships between teachers and children reflect that. The fact that they don't just accept knowledge blindly. I talk about traditional schools teachers being page turners. Today's Monday, we turn to page 35. That's not education. That's what my grandmother experienced, my grandfather experienced. Education is about having textbooks and learning knowledge, but it's about applying it and unpacking it. And okay, I know this now. Well, how can I apply it differently? Or what if things were differently? What would things look like? These are really important challenges that teachers offer children in great schools. How approachable is management? That's really important to understand. I mean, can you get to the CEO? Can you get to the principal? How difficult is it? And what does that relationship look like? Even if you've got really difficult, tough questions, how well are they answered? And are they answered authentically, or is it just political speak, just trying to make you go away? I mean, I'm very, very aware in marketing with schools is that if you join our school, this relationship lasts for a long time. We're not selling you a used car. We're not saying, quickly, buy this used car. I'll give you the keys. Give me a few $1,000s and off we go. We'll never see each other again. That's not how it works. We're going to begin a relationship that lasts for a really long time. And to be honest, I'm still connected with families that when I was principal of families in Dubai and Australia and China and other parts of the world that I've worked. So it's a long-term relationship. So if someone's trying to sell you a secondhand car or you feel like it, that's the wrong school for you. Get authentic, get directly connected. Understand their philosophy and the ethics and values of that school, because that's what's going to make a difference. The world's going to be better than people think. I mean, it really is. I'm very excited about what the next 10 and 20 years are going to look like. But you need to be ready and we need to adapt. One of the things that concerns me for Chloe is currently inundated with lots of negative information. She's getting lots of bad stuff. 75%, sadly, of the news that we hear today is negative. So we need to counter that. The truth is the brain's amygdala responds to threats. And centuries ago, this kind of thing kept us alive. Back in the caveman days, negative information meant that we needed to get defensive and threatened, and we needed to push back. This is what made us survive and helped us survive in the real world. But in 2020, we need so much more than this. We need to be positive and enthusiastic. And we need to make sure that we encourage our children to see crises and challenges as opportunities and not teachers need to smile. Your kids need to come home happy and smiling. We talk a lot about digital obesity and we talk about the negative effects of digital technology. You need to be aware of that. Does a school culture use technology just for the sake of it or in ways that accelerate learning for kids? Again, I'm a realistic optimist. I believe that some technology is not good. The truth is, during the MCO period, online learning was not the best thing for our kids. Some teachers and schools did it incredibly well, but face-to-face learning, working with kids face-to-face is really what makes a difference. So walk through a school when it's in operation. I mean, open days are cool and they're fun and interesting to go to, and you get a chance to talk to people, but I mean, why don't you visit the school when it's in operation? Get a sense and a feel about the climate of the school. That's going to really help you understand better about what the school is like. You don't want a downer kind of attitude where the school goes, well, you can't visit our school right now because we'd rather you come on an open day. What do you got to hide? Come during a normal day. Walk past the classroom. See if those kids are smiling, laughing. See if those kids are excited to be there. Meet the teachers. Find out if they're good people to have your children spend time with. I mean, Kingsgate has 100% native English-speaking teachers from the US, UK, Canada, or Australia. These people are well-educated, well-trained. They're accredited to teach in their own home countries. These people can influence your children in very, very positive ways. You need to figure out who they are as people, not just as educators. All highly qualified teachers have been to university, so they've got the knowledge. That's nothing to argue about. But do they have the ability to impart knowledge? Do they have the ability to make your child excited about learning? That's something you really need to investigate, and you need to do that face-to-face. School's not just a business. School is about relationships between stakeholders, and you really need to understand that. And Chloe needs to have great relationships with her teachers and the school as well. We talk also a lot about the concept of curation, distilling information we receive. So just like you distill information on Facebook and through social media, you need to distill the information you're getting from schools that's just marketing pitch. We can have beautiful brochures and beautiful websites, but what does it really look like? What I found interesting about the MCO period is that facilities no longer mattered. Facilities no longer mattered during the MCO period because what mattered most is teachers and children and parents and that relationship that existed. And it broke really badly when schools couldn't manage the online learning period well. But it flourished and really did well when the relationships were great. Those teachers taught children really well in some circumstances. And how did they do that? It happened because their ability to communicate and the relationships they created and the extra time and effort that they took. So these things are really important. Now, Chloe needs to have some control over her life. She needs to have some independence. She needs to be able to succeed beyond schooling. I can give you countless examples of incredibly bright children who fail at university. So what happens is there's straight A children at school and they go off to the US, Australia, Canada, the UK, and don't necessarily succeed in those different environments. So they were incredibly well protected and supported in school, but they didn't have independent skills. They didn't have the skills to become leaders. They didn't have the ability to solve problems independently. And that's a gradual process. Let's not throw children in the deep end. But gradually, children need to be able to take control over their own learning. So children need to be supported and encouraged and supervised closely. They need discipline, but they need to love learning independent of you and independent of their teachers. And how does that happen? Not by accident. I know one of the things that we're really excited about at Kingsgate is we have student-led three-way conferences, and they're really interesting. Now, traditionally, parent-teacher interviews require a teacher and a parent have a meeting for 30, 40 minutes. And what happens is the teacher tells the parent the things that the children are good at and they're not so good at. So I just don't think those kind of models are effective. Student-led three-way conferences are different because what happens is the actual child takes control of that process. And the child actually tells the parent what they're doing well at and what they're not doing so well at. So they're independently in control of their own learning. And they share with that team of people that are around them, the people they love, that love and care for them, what they know they need to improve. And they take ownership of their own learning. I think that's really important. In lives, they take control of what they need to do to be successful. They acknowledge that there's information and knowledge that they need to know well. They need to do well in exams and achieve good grades, but they need to be able to have those interpersonal skills, those leadership skills, those soft skills to succeed as well. Now, Chloe needs to be passionate. She needs to be motivated and excited. And she's going to do that when she's more connected to her learning. So if the classroom is traditional and it's just the teacher at the front of the room trying to throw information at the child, almost pour the bucket full of information, then she's not going to be as passionate or excited about her learning. So that's something that you really need to understand, that that's not what international education looks like. And it's not what modern education looks like. She needs to have some control. She needs to be able to participate and have leadership over her own life. She needs to authentically participate. I get very cynical about leadership programs in schools where we pretend leadership, where committees are set up where children can pretend making decisions over what's going to happen in the school. Real experiences is what teach children how to lead. I mean, during this pandemic crisis, leaders have been having many meetings. And these leaders of the world and of our countries haven't been walking into meeting rooms with answers. They've been meeting together and with questions, challenging each other, playing devil's advocate, throwing around opposing ideas. This is what good decision-making looks like. And it doesn't happen by accident. Children need to learn that as well. Authentic participation in real-world problems is very important. I think at Kingsgate, one of the other things that we're particularly proud of for parents is that we're very accessible. And I've said before that strong management is incredibly important. You need to have, when you're looking at schools and deciding what school's right for you, you need to make sure that you have access to management and you can participate and have input. We have this interesting process called Directors Roundtable. Some people think we're crazy. What happens is once a month, parents, whoever they are, it doesn't matter, there's no agenda, parents can come along and meet directly with the directors, with me, with Shanna, with Michael, the principal, and ask questions directly about the school and what's happening. Challenge us, asking us those difficult questions on the spot, in front of other parents. We're not afraid of that. We're not afraid about the fact that parents can participate in management of the school. We listen. It's a service industry. And as I said, this is not a relationship that lasts a minute. This is a relationship that lasts 10, 12, 13 years sometimes. So we have Directors Roundtable once a month where parents can come and talk to us about what's happening in the school. Many of the parents of our school have our phone numbers, our personal phone numbers. They don't abuse the fact, but they contact us whenever they feel it's necessary to talk about how the school's going and to ask us some of those really important questions about school operations. Look, I think it's an incredibly exciting time for us as educators because we're definitely, someone accelerated the world changes. Someone said, independently of us, that those rapid changes that were already happening are going to move even faster and we need to adapt. So the things that we continue to focus on at Kingsgate is having high quality teachers. The truth is, in education, I'll be honest, great teaching can happen under a tree. It sometimes doesn't matter where you are. It's that relationship between teachers and students that make a difference. So good teachers make a difference. As someone who sets up and operates schools in different parts of the world, I understand the business model. I understand how the business of for-profit school works. And let me tell you, 60 to 80% of a school budget is teachers. Good teachers are expensive. Good teachers make a difference. So when you're evaluating individual schools, I really encourage you to consider who are the teachers teaching your child. That's where the quality really should be focused. You need to judge, am I getting access to the highest quality teachers, or is this just a smoke screen? Is that teacher on the front cover or brochure of the school real, or is this part of a marketing scheme? Strong education management is incredibly important. You need to make sure you have access to management. They're strong, they're courageous, and they can adapt. Ask parents what they think of management. Ask parents how much access they have. A school needs to have an innovative approach to education. It needs to be academically sharp. Children need to get good grades, but it needs to be also encouraging children to become good at adapting, good at applying the knowledge in critical ways. helping children to become innovative thinkers. That's really, really important because academics alone is only just part of the picture. It was interesting, I was reading a forum the other day on Facebook, and they were judging a school's performance based on how many A results were happening in that school. And to be honest, as an educator, I shook my head thinking, that's the wrong question. It really is. Of course, it's important for a school to get lots of A's. But what about the children that are getting a C? How many of those children are moving from a C to a B? How many children are moving from a B to an A? It's that distance traveled that's incredibly important. Of course, it's important how many children are getting A's, but the bulk of the kids are C's and B's, or maybe B's and above. How well is that school moving those children forward? That's the question you need to ask the school, more so than just how many students are getting A's. Your school needs to be highly academic, but also apply knowledge in real-world context. One of the things that I'm excited about right now with Kingsgate is that many families are moving to Kingsgate because they realize the quality of teaching and learning that happens in our school. Why pay 30% more in tuition fees at other schools for the same quality teachers and learning? And in some cases, why are you paying 20 to 30% more in tuition fees for poorer quality teaching and learning? And that's my challenge for you to investigate is, are you comparing schools on a same for same basis? Are you really comparing teacher for teacher, or brochure to brochure, or marketing strategy to marketing strategy? Are you genuinely asking questions that help you know whether the quality of school is so good? So look, I'm now going to just quickly read through some of your chat questions. I really appreciate the questions that you've asked. And I'll just go through them one by one. Yura's asked that they saw on our website there's a homework club. What is that? Well, what happens at our school is we have extracurricular activities on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays that are free at no cost to you at all. So every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, your children can participate in free extracurricular activities that range from football to dance to creative activities, as well as homework club and extension activities. So your child's extension of learning goes beyond the normal day. So if your child is not getting, what they need, or maybe they need extra support, we can provide that. I'll be honest, it drives me crazy that parents are sending their children to tuition centers. Why would you send your child to an international school and pay expensive fees and then send your child to a tuition center? I'm sorry, but you're not getting value for money. Your school should be should be a one-stop shop. That's where your child should be learning. And if your child needs extra support, the school should provide it. And we do that at Kingsgate as well. Jackson Limbs mentioned about mental health. That's really important as well to us. We care a lot about it. And I think I've probably talked about this in my presentation, but we care a lot about mental health. There's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes unofficially to make sure that we care about kids. I think what you need to do, when you're judging a school's focus on this, you need to understand what their attention is. You may note probably in my presentation today, if you were to judge how much time I've spent talking about traditional academic curriculum versus the holistic learning that the person, the child, and as a human being, I think it reflects the fact that we care a lot about the emotional well-being of children as well. Children should not be isolated with technology. There was a lot of technology companies that were saying, oh, well, this is proof through the pandemic period that technology learning works. I'm sorry, it doesn't. It doesn't work as well as face-to-face. Children develop strong connections with teachers, and teachers are an extension of home. We can make sure that children's well-being is supported. Another question about incorporating digital technologies into learning. As I said, I think I've sort of addressed this partly, but I believe in technology, but not just for the sake of it. I believe that it's important that the technology we use is an extension of learning. It's a tool to be used to improve learning for kids. It's not just for the sake of it. So we do use iPads and laptops, and all children have access to laptops and iPads in our school, but it's connected to learning. It's not just for the sake of it. It drives me crazy when schools replace face-to-face learning with technology just to be cool, as a marketing ploy. Our teachers discriminate over the use of technology, make sure that it's focused. We use a lot of technology, but in ways that increase learning for kids. Too much. Look, I think it is about balance. I think that during these MCO periods, your children have probably spent more time online than you would have liked them to. And I think that's really important that you be careful about that. Don't be afraid to be a parent. You're not their friend. I have 2 boys. I'm their dad. And there's some things I'm strict about. Don't be afraid to do that. And we say to our teachers as well, care and love the kids, but you're not their friend. So it's about balancing discipline. It's about framing it in a nice, supportive way. It's not about using coercion and a big stick approach. It's about showing the kid that your discipline is about you loving them so much that you put some restrictions around it. So give them some online time, but make sure, negotiate that this is a balance. And where possible, help them develop protective behaviors and don't let them just have a free-for-all. Another question is about how do we instill a similar mindset into our teaching and support staff? Well, the truth is we're really hands-on. I have a business. I have a company that sets up and operates schools, but we're really hands-on. Shanna's very hands-on. If you ask any of our parents in the school, they have her phone number. They text her if required. The principal has direct access to parents on a regular basis. We're a community. We reach out for each other. Let me tell you a really sad story. One of our teachers lost their husband last year, and it upsets me to think about it. But in many ways, again, our school was tested. Our school's character and values were tested by a crisis, and it pulled us together. That's how we inculcate these values and beliefs. The MCO period was stressful for all of us. It was stressful for all of us who were away from our families and friends, but in many ways it showed that our families pulled together. They were connected. We were in touch with our parents, and they really enjoyed being a part of a tight community under a crisis. I think that's how do we instill a similar mindset in our teachers? That's how we do it. Another question is how do teachers prepare our students to create a future? How do we ensure that they get the right teacher for the job? Well, we certainly are very careful in our recruitment process. And to be honest, we're a little bit different. I've never shared this story before, but let me tell you a real story about how we select our teachers. Our teachers our principal interviews teachers. Shanna, my wife and partner in global services and education, she interviews the teachers, and our teachers also participate in the process. So we have a very thorough and comprehensive process where their colleagues interview the new teachers coming in, because we want to know whether this teacher can fit within the team. We want to know whether this teacher is going to be supported by their colleagues, because it's not just about the certificates. We all know they're qualified. They don't get an interview unless they're qualified, but we want to know the other stuff. And so teachers make a judgment about whether they're going to be a part of the team, and that's really important. So we also continue to support the teachers by observing them and supporting them, not in just a top-down kind of process where it's big stick, where we're evaluating teachers constantly in a top-down negative way. But our leadership team, particularly Michael and Shanna, spend a lot of time with teachers to support and encourage them and walk into their classrooms. They know what's happening in the classroom. There's never any surprises. So we're very hands-on and we're close to the action. We know what's happening in all the classes. Another question about, do you have 3 children? So a person's got 3 children. Do we offer sibling discounts? Yes, we do. We do offer sibling discounts, and it's on our website. And certainly for 3 children, there are additional sibling discounts that you can access as well. So it's 5% and 3%, and it scales through depending on how many children you have. So please talk to our marketing team about that. And we've actually got some significant discounts on right now for those that are participating in this webinar. You'll be able to talk to the admissions team in the next couple of hours and find out exactly what those discounts are. And another person's asked a question. They're at another international school in another location. And I've been talking about relationships with teachers. She's concerned about teachers changing school every 2 to 3 years and how do we manage those relationships. Look, that's very real. And look, again, if you ask some of the other schools right now, they might tell you some silly lies that the truth is the expat foreign teachers are going to be there forever. The truth is they're not. The foreign teachers, are from Australia. I can tell you that statistically in high quality schools, the average tenure and time that a teacher is out of school is 3.2 years. That's the average. So if you're trying to judge the turnover of teachers in a school, 3 years is pretty common. And if a school tells you differently, I'm sorry, but they're just not being honest with you. The truth is expat teachers do change. So how do we maintain quality there? Of course, we have overlap and we have a very thorough orientation program. We make sure that when a teacher arrives at our school, they understand this is how we do business around here. It's not just about policies and handbooks, but teachers very quickly spend time with colleagues, they're mentored by their colleagues, and they understand the ethos of our school. So because we're a close and connected community, they understand the ethos very quickly. So we team our teachers up, new teacher with old teachers. That's about helping them understand how to get around town, but it's also about the ethos of our school, our values and our characters, and we stay very connected. So that's really important. How do parents get involved in our school is the other question. I think I might make this my last one. Parents can get involved directly in our school because we have certainly there are parent groups that get involved in activities. We celebrate every possible cultural tradition in our school, from Chinese New Year to different other festivals from all different religions, everything from Christmas to Hari Raya. All of those are involved, and the parents participate directly in those by helping organise them and participate. Our athletics days are fun. Our parents actually run and participate in the athletics, and that's really good fun to see. But as I said, I think the key thing for us for participation is it real? I think some schools fake this. I think they really fake about it. They say that they involve parents in the school, but they don't really. There's always a limit. There's they say the door is open, but it's really not. Directors round table once a month, parents can come and meet with us directly and ask us all those tough, difficult questions. Scary environment for us maybe, because we leave ourselves open, but we're authentic. We make mistakes. We're not perfect, but parents can participate in the decisions and we listen. And I say to any parent, if you're considering our school, I'll let you connect with our own parents and decide for yourself what kind of school we are based on other parents' opinion. So thanks for listening, guys, and please connect with me directly, and I'd love to answer any future questions personally or connect with our admissions team.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Parry. That was very insightful.
Thank you. It's been a great chance to talk to people.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, and let's be in touch again soon.